Welcome to another Nightscape editing tutorial. You might remember in the last video, I had a whole bunch of noise in parts of my image. Today we're going to learn one method of removing some of that noise. We're going to take multiple images and combine them in a program called Starry Landscape Stacker. So let's get on to showing how we can edit these images. Welcome to Grant Takes Pictures. I'm Grant and I take pictures. So here we are in Lightroom. We have these 10 images imported. And first things we're going to do is we're going to make some slight edits to the very first image. This photo is a little bit dark, so we're going to raise the exposure just about 3/4 of a stop. I think that looks pretty good. And the white balance, I want to drop down quite a bit. It's just a very yellow image. For this image, 6000 looks pretty good, but that will change from image to image depending on your light sources and your camera settings. Then we want to ignore all the rest of this. None of these tone sliders, the presence sliders, or the tone curve. Ignore all of that, but come all the way down here to noise reduction. Lightroom defaults to having a little bit of noise reduction for color, but we don't want any of that. We want to remove our noise in other ways using Starry Landscape Stacker. So let's remove that, bring it down to 0. And that's all we want to do with this first image. So now that that's looking good, let's select all of our images and then come into Development Settings and sync the settings. Make sure everything is checked and hit Synchronize. And once it's pasted the settings into all 10 of our images, we want to come in and export these images. So I have a preset for Starry Landscape Stacker temp files, and that's what we're going to use today. So put it into whatever folder you want. I do a SLS temp files folder. You can rename the files if you wish. I'm not going to bother with it, but in file settings, we want to make sure we are set to TIFF, Pro Photo RGB, no compression, and 16-bit color depth. This will give us as much color depth as possible in a TIFF file to edit later on. Don't resize the image and make sure sharpening is turned off, but make sure you've included all of the metadata. Starry Landscape Stacker uses the metadata in those images to figure out what order they should be in and just how far the stars should have moved across the sky. So now that we have these 10 images exported, we're going to open up Starry Landscape Stacker. So we have Starry Landscape Stacker here, nice and open. We're going to select the 10 images and hit open, and it will process them and try to figure out what is sky and what is foreground. But we're going to be able to correct it a little bit here. So these red dots should be in the sky and they represent stars. Unfortunately, you see quite a few red dots also down here in the foreground that we have to remove. So let's erase those from the foreground first. That's the easy part. Looks like we have a few here in the Joshua tree as well. So let's just get rid of those. And we'll come back in and add what we need to when we zoom in. So here we go to add red dots. And let's zoom in. So we want to try to put as many dots as we can in the empty parts of the sky. So these dots, like I said, represent stars. So let's just start putting these on top of some stars. Looks like we didn't erase a couple of these here on the Joshua tree. So to pan around when you're zoomed in is just like Photoshop or Lightroom. You press the space bar and you can drag the image around with the little hand grabby tool. Let's continue adding red dots everywhere we can. Okay, so here we are. We have all of our stars marked in the sky. So we are going to go in, and now we hit Find Sky, and it'll create the mask that we need. So as you can see, here we have our mask. It didn't quite get all of the sky, especially up here in the corners. And then there's going to be some adjustments we need to make right along the horizon. So let's just paint in the sky here. Make sure all these corners are in here nicely, all the edges. And then if we zoom in, just start painting along the sky. Our brush is a little too big, so let's shrink that down. Let's look all around this Joshua tree. This came out really well, actually. Better than I was expecting. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, this did a great job on this one. Oh, here we have some sky that has been mapped to the foreground. So if we go to Paint Ground, it will remove that, just like that. Yes, let's check all down here. So here we want to fill in these gaps. Clean up this area a little bit. That'll probably end up getting cut off when I go to crop the image at the end anyway. But there we have our mask. And now we hit Align and Composite, and it will process and combine all of these images. So it chooses one of the images. In this case, it's choosing the middle image. We can pick which image we want to use as our base image, but picking one in the middle is the best way to go, because the sky will have moved half the amount before the image and half the amount after the image. All right, so here we have our final combined image. Starry Landscape Stacker has a couple different algorithms it can use to combine these images. It defaults to this minimum horizon noise, which is normally what I stick with. Sometimes, on all my images, I flip through all of the different options and make sure I find the one that I like the most. But on this one, we are sticking with minimum horizon noise. And we just hit save and tell it where we want to save it. So I'm going to put it in the same SLS temp files, and it saves the image with the image name and min horizon noise. So hit save. And I've also told it to save a mask. So the mask is just the sky, where the full image is both the sky and the foreground. So let's go back to Lightroom and let's import these two new files. So here we are in the folder where I saved those two new images. I have all of these TIFFs that we use to combine in Starry Landscape Stacker, so I'm going to uncheck all and only get these two pictures that I want. So the mask and the combined image. Let's import them. Now, if we look at the combined image, which is right here, with one of the original images, so here's the original image, and here's the combined image. So if we zoom in on the combined image, there isn't all that much noise here in the sky. Whereas if we look at the original image, once it loads, we have a significant amount of noise. You can see all, especially in these dark areas, where there is a bunch of different colors going on, and the colors that are supposed to be there aren't all that smooth. But if you go here, you can see a lot more detail and softer transitions between the colors of the Milky Way. So that's what Starry Landscape Stacker did for us. It removed all of that noise. I'm not going to spend that much time describing how to edit this Starscape image. I did that in my last video. I'm going to do this pretty quickly without describing it too much. But if you want to see a description of how to edit a Starscape video, I will put a link right up here, and you can go and check that out. But for now, I'm going to run through this pretty quickly. So let's start increasing the contrast. Bring down everything except the whites. And then my favorite slider, dehaze. That'll bring that out pretty well. We're already seeing the foreground turning a little bit yellow, so I'm actually going to change the white balance a bit. That might be too much. And then bring just a bit of vibrance and bring down the saturation to balance that out. And now a slight S-bend or S-curve to my tone curve. I'm actually pretty happy with the HSL sliders. Like I said, this was a pretty bright night, so the Milky Way is a little hard to see. Some lens correction, as we always should. And I want to crop it. Give it a nice crop. That looks pretty good. On a darker night, we would have been able to bring out more of the Milky Way. If you've enjoyed this video, hit that like button below. I do have a photo for sale from this same trip of a Joshua tree and the Milky Way above it. If you would like to look into that, I have a link in the description below to my website and to that photograph for sale. You can take a look at it right here. It's, I think, a lovely photo. I've already sold one copy, so there's only 4 left. If you like that, give it a purchase. It'll really help out my photography and this channel. But if you enjoy this channel, hit that subscribe button. I try to bring you 2 new videos every week. One of me taking pictures and one of me editing pictures. And hopefully you find this educational and entertaining. So if you do, hit that subscribe button. If you've liked the video, hit that like button. And we will see you again next week.